Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're consuming this broadcast. Welcome to BasTalk, your friendly weekly podcast where we talk about everyday issues at work, simplify the complex, cut down the mumbo jumbo, and try and get you to think more. It's a slow burn, monologue, one way traffic. Of course, when you can leave comments and everything and reviews, I get to hear some of your thoughts and share some of the same during the course of the episode. As always, I sift through some of the interesting conversations happened in the week gone by, and this week I am going to talk about the woke culture. Are you struggling with the woke culture? And if so, what is it that you can do about it? Do you even recognize that you're in the middle of it? Or are you one of those people who are completely oblivious to what a woke culture is? Interesting conversation ahead. Stay tuned, sit back, relax, know what to expect in Bus Talk. Go to www.bustalk.in. That's where all the previous 5 seasons are stored. You can listen to any of the previous episodes neatly tucked under various headers: people management, conflict resolution, stakeholder management, leadership, and the works. And of course, you can reach me on Ionisms on platform X, that is AAYANISMS. Send me a tweet, formerly tweet or now post, and I'm available on LinkedIn in case you need to search me. Search me by my first name and the first three letters of my last name. That is Iron Ban, AAYANBAN. So the prefix to that is /IN for India, IN/Iron Ban. Chances are you will find me and drop a note, and I will get your invite to accept, and do refer that you are from, or you are a bus talk listener. So that helps put reference to context. And last but not the least, we do have a Telegram and a WhatsApp group. So in case you are keen to get a first cut preview, then do send me a note on any of the channels mentioned above. Happy to add you there. And as always, always remember the disclaimer, and I mean it not just for the heck of saying it, but truly, all the content that you hear on this podcast, on this channel, are personal and strictly personal. These are not the views of any organization from my past, present, or future, or any of the other associations that I have. And I want you to be mature about it as well and think about it in a way that I'm trying to share in my personal capacity, a personal opinion to the best of my ability and knowledge. Some of which you might agree, some of you which you might disagree. And as always, and if you're new to Bus Talk, if you go back to some of the even earlier episodes, you'll always see this constant communication that work the the content that you hear on Bus Talk is a work in progress. It's changing. It is often evolving. It is also, which is why what was right once is not right today, or which is right today will not be right tomorrow. So these are the realities that we live in, and so it's important that you recognize these disclaimers and be as open as you can. And that's the tribe I'm trying to build, of mature people, a mature audience, which mature by not just in age but by way of thinking, by way of being liberal, open, neutral, and enjoying this content with an open mind, even if we are to agree to disagree, and that is absolutely fine. So, bouquets and brickbats, welcome. Let's dive into this episode of Bus Talk. But before we dive in, I just want to make sure we have a common level understanding of what exactly means by the term woke culture. So, let's start with the basic definition. It actually has very deep and serious roots, more than the modern internet version. So the early origins, I think it goes back to 1930s and 40s. The term woke first appeared in the African American vernacular English in the United States. Essentially, it simply meant being awake or alert to social injustices. At the time, of course, racism was prevalent. So, racism being the focal point. So, simply put, it meant that are you aware? Do you even know that this is something wrong to discriminate someone on the color of their skin? So, example in 1938, blues musician Lead Belly used to stay woke in a song warning Black Americans to be cautious about racial violence. And then fast forward to 60s, I think woke became associated with the fight against racial discrimination and broader civil rights struggles. Being woke meant being aware of systemic oppression. The re-emergence, of course, happened around 2010s thanks to social media. Woke was revived during movements like Black Lives Matter. It expanded to mean the awareness of all forms of inequality, race, gender, sexuality, environment, and more. And so it became popular on Twitter, Instagram, and often used as a badge of social consciousness. But as is the case everywhere, something which starts with all the right intentions, notions, probably it's going a little too far. And again, the woke people will say, what's too far? The so called other side of woke, when we call them asleep or unwoke, I don't know. But they would say, woke culture can refer to both positive activism, which is supporting equality and inclusion, and uh, the problem starts when the excessive political correctness or virtue signaling. That's where it tilts over sometimes. So some people view it as a necessary progress, saying there has been so much of inequality that has happened, injustice that has happened, that even if it tips over a little bit to the other side, it's not like necessarily a extreme situation. So in short, original meaning was to be aware or stay aware of the injustices happening around you. And now it is graduated, updated, augmented to mean little more than that, right? Empowering, sometimes even divisive, depending on how it is practiced. So that's where we stand today. So just wanted to make sure everybody, all the bus talkers listening, are on the same page on the basic definition of what, when we say woke, what does it actually mean? So in a in today's episode, we'll probably touch a little bit upon why it feels so polarizing, especially in societies like India, where it is modernizing in the cities in some part, and other places not so much. There's largely still conservatism prevalent, and then those, it's very complex, right? There's no clear demarcations. There's a lot of people who are in urban areas who are graduating from erstwhile or previous conservative conditioning and upbringing into suddenly the uber modern definition of woke culture. And then those who are versus those who are very used to this kind of an environment. And there are lots of differences of opinions, conflicts, and that's where the divisiveness creeps in. And so, how net of the story is, how do you stay genuinely empathetic, becoming without really becoming preachy, fake, or even farcical? When does woke become farcical? We'll touch a couple of examples on that, and when it is genuine, and then the practical ways to educate yourself, be a little more inclusive in conversations, and grow without a feeling of being on either end of the spectrum. So, somewhere between tradition and progress, there is space for honest, kind, and courageous conversations. And hopefully, today is going to be one of them, as is the case with Bus Talk always. So, let's get started with some of the common platforms we see wokeness debated, discussed, agreed, disagreed. LinkedIn. And so, one of the common things that we get to say is, oh, all these suddenly everybody's become an expert and they're giving gyan, aka knowledge, free, unsolicited advice. Gyan is just not, I mean, literally it means knowledge, but for those who don't understand the the subtext to it is like, even if you didn't ask for it, people offer expertise, and many a times when these people are far from being experts. And yes, one can, the woke people can debate abilities better than experience or greater than experience or independent of experience, right? Somebody, just because I'm 5 years old, as in not literally in the workplace 5 years old, doesn't mean I do not have a strategic insight into something very deep, which takes years to understand. I'm just trying to think of an example. Think of probably drawing up the GTM strategy for a region. Now, one can always argue, well, I look at my academics. I come from the premier institution where I've read about all these. I've given thesis, I've given a whole bunch of things, projects, I've done internship, and I've worked even 3, 4 years. So, absolutely, I'm well equipped. So, yes, it's confidence. And it could also be strong ability, but some things in life accrue to you over a period of time. Like it takes time for you to figure out how the ups and downs, the highs and lows of a particular idea happen. And so difficult to compress it within 5 years. So, long story short, what it means is yes, there could be exceptional individuals who, even with 4 years, 5 years of work experience, can discuss, deliver, write complex subject like a GTM strategy for a region, for a company, for whatever possible. You're not ruling that out. But generally speaking, it's difficult. Generally speaking, you get to design strategies much later in your career. And that's precisely where the bedrock of confusion, conflict lies, what seems very normal. So you're a leader, you want to give or share your point of view on LinkedIn. And here you have another person who probably does not have a similar example, is contesting you on their point of view. And you're trying to be inclusive, you're trying to be patient, but this person starts to troll you. And and then the moment you retaliate or you give a response, retaliate is a strong word, I'll take that back, respond, then the one set of audience will say, oh my god, look, this person is such a senior person, they shouldn't have reacted that way, it's just a young person trying to assert themselves, what's wrong with that? So there's that audience. And then there is the other audience which will say, oh my god, how why are you taking nonsense for so long? This is why haven't you shut them down earlier when you know that what they're saying is incorrect, factually incorrect? And so this definition of what is woke and what is not woke is often plagued at the modern workplace. There are, of course, bear in mind where, and I'm talking about only those instances where it is in the gray area, where there it is in black and white, where there is absolute no dispute, no other possible interpretation. Those are different cases. There's absolutely the laws and the rules and regulations and whatever is laid down is absolutely fair. But there are instances where, like I said, everybody has their point of view and their part of the story. The person who's trying to share their point of view on LinkedIn, despite not having the experience, probably thinks, well, why follow tradition? Why not question status quo? What's wrong with that? The person who is probably been through that circle knows that if you go this path, you're probably going to head into these problems. Where is the time to argue? And they respond back. And so this constant back and forth. And so how do you uh, manage this polarity or polarization in a team, in an organization, where you could be in a situation where there are, everybody has a very different expectation, and not all come from the same upbringing, they don't come from the same conditioning or the same societal background or socio-economical background. So their understanding of life situation and the level of exposure or the lack of it all add to your view of an interaction with a person. Like in many places where it's absolutely like, for example, Japan, you cannot just go and hug somebody in Japan, right? You would probably, stay 2 feet apart, bow politely, and then eventually, give them the opportunity to speak first. So it's a very formal engagement protocol. But if you go to some of the other regions, which are fairly relaxed, there it's probably okay to give hug a light embrace. Of course, if you know the person for long enough, that's different. I'm talking about this. See, there's so many nuances to this. If you assuming you're meeting the person for the first time, you give them a warm handshake, you give them a tight handshake, not the tepid one, which is also interpreted as poor body language. But if your handshake is too hard, then that could be misinterpreted as well. If you go stand too far from someone and looking somewhere else, that could construe as an insult. Whereas if you stand too close to somebody, that too could be interpreted as violation of personal space. Yeah, these are all real, especially if two opposite genders are in play. Closer home in India, we are a largely conservative society, suddenly now have better exposure to broader global understandings. And these are not blanket understandings. They, for those who travel well, who are better exposed to other cultures, other scenarios, tend to respond better than those who are recently getting exposed. And then those who have been not exposed at all and continue with their past mindset. So it's such a concoction of different backgrounds, different mindsets coming under one roof that is one of the reasons why we have so many instances of people having outbursts, outrage, anger, disappointment, whatever. Right? So it all adds up. And so traditional values clash with hyper modern sensibilities is a very tough balance to execute in most organizations in the region. Whereas one has to realize that society as a whole needs to evolve, needs to change. What you did not know earlier, you are aware now. And so, should you not walk on that path? And that's a part of your becoming woke or awake or aware of, oh, now this is considered as a violation. So, I should not go that part. And that's a constant evolving definition, just so that you know. It's not like a anchored decision, anchored point. It is an evolving definition. And so, but to make people aware and not like a project but like a way of life is something which is critical. I think if I take you back to yet another example, the debates around festivals. I think one debate was around Diwali, festival of lights, the busting firecrackers versus environmental concerns. It led to a cultural friction. It's like saying, these woke people, they are telling us not to burst crackers, and that's something that we've been doing since childhood. It's a years and years of hundreds of years, if not thousands of years of tradition. How can they just say ban crackers and all that? And on the other hand, uh, the air quality index has gone off the charts. People are choking. It's become hazardous. That's the other reality. And people say, "Oh, it's just once in a year," but and that's where the debate happens every year without fail. So at work, the sensitivity without becoming, or being genuine. Let's say, I was about to say without becoming fake nice. People are just there's just too much of fake niceties that go on in the name of politeness. There is, on the other hand, while you have to always stay professional, which does require you to have this polite smile, but it shouldn't transcend to being fake, to being banal about it. So, how do you have a meaningful conversation without parroting buzzwords? I know paradigm shift is something that you've heard. Without, distinguishing real life empathy versus surface level virtue signaling. And while it is not the goal or aim to be, preachy, the goal is to see how you can coexist with such diverse mindset people. So it's, I would urge everybody to have an open discussion without prejudice, without being judged. So if HRBPs are listening to this, if it would be a very healthy conversation in my view, and I mind it will be a difficult conversation to execute because people won't open up for fear of being judged, misunderstood, or labeled, or oh my God, this person was saying or thinking like this. But it's very important to have um, an open discussion of what's right, what's wrong, what what is acceptable, and not from just a definition standpoint. I think that awareness is made available by various videos, various commentary and literature and everything. What I'm saying is, if you have a close knit team, it's very important to have that open discussion within the team, saying, what is it that is okay with you? We are all working under one roof, and many organizations are now back to office working, 10 hours, 9 hours on a regular basis. In most instances, these every job function is high pressure, tensions are high, there are deadlines, everybody's working very hard. And so, what are the trigger points that upset somebody? What is acceptable? And it has to start top down, has to come from the leader. Sometimes leaders push in the effort to push the team, they use unparliamentary language, which is in the name of, I'm trying to get deliver a tough love conversation. Now, delivering a tough love conversation with the sheer situation. Think of a sales team. It's often the situation when you're doing very well. People will appreciate and stand up and clap, and all the high fives and thumbs up emojis do the rounds. And when you don't do well, clearly the tough love conversation happens. But within the group, there could be this one person who does not thrive well under pressure, and therefore when the going gets tough, they probably need to be sat down and explained and coached, maybe counseled, and say, hey, don't worry, I'm with you. Supported is the word I was looking for. And maybe they will do better rather than inflating or increasing or ratcheting up more tension. And while doing so, the leaders often argue that how am I supposed to do this across a 100-member org or a 200-member org? I mean, I just can't do that. And if I just do it with my directs, is that enough? Is it going down to their directs? It will, and if you do an open town hall and call everybody and let's discuss what is woke and what is not, I guarantee you there will be silence. Nobody's going to speak up, and that also is a sign of our times, right? People, if they are unable, a sign of our culture, that if employees are not empowered enough to share what they thought was right and wrong without being persecuted, without being perceived as, oh my God, this person thinks that violating someone's personal space is absolutely fine. Instead of judging them, is there a way to coach them and say, look, this is what is acceptable, this is not? And even if that does not make sense to you or doesn't sound logical to you, these are the rules of engagement for these institutions or these organizations, and one has to follow that. Now, I know L&D teams would listening to this will say, well, we ask people to take courses, we do the learning management, we do a whole bunch of things, but people just look at it as a checkbox activity. They don't really do a deep dive. So how do you educate them and make them think that this is not a project or a checkbox activity? This is something that you need to follow as everywhere. Now, what happens is this: these same people, when they step outside the office, then it's a completely different environment. And so many people struggle managing this dichotomy that, oh, on one hand, this is completely fine. On the other hand, it is completely wrong. Right. So it is, if I were to just sum this up for you, one needs to have a culture or a work culture with or a culture fabric in the team where people a are able to articulate very clearly without fearing any retribution, without fearing any reaction, that what's acceptable and what's not. That's one. And then the other party should also have an equal say that, oh, this is what I was intending, this is what I was meaning, and also be heard, whether it is right, wrong, good, bad, ugly, whatever. Not uh, hearing them and putting a blanket shutdown will risk situations where you will land up with more misunderstandings than understandings. And as an organization, you want things to work or people to work together in harmony. They don't need to love each other, but they need to work together in harmony. And so overcorrection and is to be balanced with someone who's generally offensive, right? So you have to correct the person. But how do you do that without stepping onto overcorrection? And of course, we have to be cognizant of the fact that, I mean, there's so many cultural aspects to it now that I think about it. It's a generational divide as well. So, what is quite acceptable to a boomer or a Gen Z manager is not acceptable to a Gen X or a millennial. What works for millennials does not work for Gen Z. That also has to be factored in. And as the times have changed and evolved, what was the formative years are the ones that always remain in your mind, right? When I say formative years, 0 to 10, 0 to 14 years of your work life generally solidify your views, your style of management, your style of operations, define your brand, which you present within the company. And that if the situation has changed so dramatically and one has to completely revamp their own brand, their style, their management, it's a very very difficult task. And that's where so many conflicts happen, so much of confusion happens. And so how do you make sure that people evolve without really giving up their reason for success, but not being rigid as well? And that's how convoluted it is. And if it is sounding very convoluted, it is because it is very difficult. It's not prescriptive. It's not, oh, if you do one, two, three, your life is sorted. So one has to be very nuanced, very subtle. There's so many areas which can be absolutely misunderstood or misinterpreted. Moving on. So now that we have discussed the problem statement, so how do you build a inclusive, certainly, but a more honest workspace? How do you do that? So I think it starts right from hiring. Have authentic hiring practices. Hire to ask people not just about job description, but their questions on integrity, their cultural sensitivity, examples on how they react to situations, tricky situations, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable as part of your cultural interview round. Like normally, round one is to see the job fitment, then the deeper dive happens on the execution. Then you have probably the leadership view, thinking of from a career potential, future roadmap, evaluation standpoint. But I also think it's very important to inject around. I know it becomes little, you elongate the interview process, but important to have one round which says, let's talk about cultural ethos. What do you stand for? What do you value? How do you view inclusivity? What are your views? Give me examples on where you've been inclusive. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? Give me some tricky situations you've navigated across, and especially if you're hiring for slightly senior roles, this could be a very very important insight into the person's mindset, the person's way of operations, right? So, and then for a younger audience, like 10, 12 years work X or thereabouts, or even earlier, start early with a cultural sensitization of the modern workplace. What is happening, and not just like an LMS platform, like I said, but like a meaningful one-to-one discussion or discussion within a small group so that nobody feels absolutely alienated or feels on the spotlight. They can they should be made to feel comfortable. And then I think above all, as long as it's not violating anything, one should celebrate the differences without the forced tokenism, as it were. Instead of having this one-time events, companies should probably have year-round mentorship programs with groups that don't look, sound, dress similar to the common workforce. Like if you have someone coming from outside the country, or if you have a workforce that is coming from another region which is not well represented, it's important to let other people know of their customs, cultures, their and integrate them into the mainstream work culture, so that they feel part of the team and they also know what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is woke and what is not woke, and minimize, right, and minimize the gap between these two things. There still will be instances of uh, aggressions, and despite of doing all these things, I'm sure many organizations already do that, but despite doing all this, there will be instances where people err and make mistakes, and those situations have to be dealt on a case-to-case basis to know the degree of violation, and establish how much of it is a violation and how much of it is a perceived violation. It's very important. Like the careers are at stake here, right? It's very important to realize that a small insinuation or perception or assumption on one part can destroy someone else's career. Is very important to realize and recognize the fact that one needs to be careful in articulating, which does not, and I repeat, it does not mean that they need to be circumspect and trap their emotions or deflect or not disclose their disappointment. That should not be the case. They should have the right platform to disclose their point of view, what they feel, how they felt. Was it violating their personal belief systems? They should absolutely never ever be stopped to do that. That they should be there. But also, there is counseling needed at either side. There needs to be coaching and counseling on letting them know that what they are perceiving as grave violation is perhaps not that grave a violation. Whereas on the other side, what the person thought, oh, this is how can someone get violated by that? It's important to counsel them as well that what you might think is not a violation is probably being defined as a violation for someone else. So those nuances, and these are very sensitive, very delicate matters. You don't know how much of a mental impact it has on people. Some people take it too extreme and take steps which could harm them. And so, if any of you are, before you take any such decisions, please talk to people, talk to more people. Don't assume, because one of the biggest challenges many people have is they snowball it into a very big instance rather than something which was very small. They just build on it, think on it, think and think, oh my God, this is so bad, and then they do harm. So please do not harm yourself in any way. It's not worth it. It's not it's not smart, right? So talk to people, talk to friends, family, whoever, and it's for both parties. Those who think that they were wrongfully violated, those who think they were wrongfully accused of those violations, absolutely have those conversations. And it's always okay to talk to the person who, both the parties should sit across the table and say, this is what I felt. And the person on the other hand should have the opportunity to explain what they were doing or what they were thinking and why they did what they did. And if they are at fault, they should absolutely apologize and face whatever the outcome of those conversations are. No two ways about it. On the other hand, if it is found that the other the party who thought they were being violated, which was actually not a violation. And I'm not saying it's a false accusation. It is what their definition of violation, but it is actually in effect not a violation. And so they should also be coached and counseled to understand that what is acceptable and what is not. And yes, this could be a very difficult conversation, because for them, even if somebody came in within 4.5 feet of standing in front of me, that constitutes a violation for me. What can I do? Those are difficult things. Strictly speaking, by the books, if they define it as a violation, it is a violation. And so, how do you manage that? It's a tough ask. And so that's where the culture fabric of the company kicks in to make them understand that what is realistic, what is realistically acceptable, what is realistically unacceptable, and also not have a rule for the sake of having a rule, but practical implications of that rule. So it's a very serious thing. It needs a lot of human sensitivity, human touch, for lack of a better experience. A humane touch is what I mean is, uh, and it has to be dealt very sensitively. So I know this is a topic which can go on and on. So I just want to sum it up saying, uh, understand that being aware of your surrounding, of your environment, of what's working, what's not working, educating yourself is absolutely required. It's silly to be ignorant, not good to be ignorant in this day and age. But like I just used the term, it's silly to be ignorant. Please don't get offended by that. Like that's trivial. Like if don't let trivialities become a major issue. And that degree of maturity needs to creep in, that what is trivial, what is simple, what is silly, what is a passing remark versus what is intended malice, or there is an element of sleaze in it, or there's an underlying undertone of sexism or undertone of some kind of violation. It's important to recognize that. So the systems and laws and books and guidelines can only help that much, but it is important to wake yourself up if you're asleep, and if you are woke enough to understand what's going on, also remind yourself not to tilt over on the other side of being extreme, where it starts or stops making practical sense of what you're asking. And yeah, and that's where it is, and this is an ever evolving situation. So let me know what you guys think, what you guys feel. Happy to take suggestions, ideas, if anybody has worked out um, a smarter way of being woke. I don't know if that's even possible. Smarter way of being woke. I think a more balanced woke. What could be the balanced woke approach? Happy to hear that. And if you want to share some instances, if you're comfortable sharing, happy to take it up in another episode, and see what other people have to say about it. I hope you guys understand that I mentioned this earlier, and I'll repeat it because some of you skip to the good part and listen in the end. There are exceptions at all times where these are undisputable, undeniable. So I'm not talking of those cases. I'm only talking about the gray areas where there is doubt, where there is reasonable doubt. Even the court of law has this clause of when there is reasonable doubt, or when there is beyond a reasonable doubt. So this is important to factor that into your vocabulary of wokeness, that what is within reasonable doubt or without a doubt, that differentiation has to be made. On that note, that's all the time, content, thought that I had. And this was one of the difficult conversations, because one has to tread the line very carefully so as to not trip on either side. And that's the pressure. It should come more naturally, but it does take, because I read so many misunderstandings and reports and arguments. People just, launch it. Oh, but you said that. How could you say that? And stuff like that. And it's often people miss the reference to context. And so I urge those who have skipped the first part, or skipped to this part in the end, please listen to the whole content so that you get a essence, the spirit of it. And then if I were to sum up the spirit of today's topic, which is are you struggling with wokeness? What I generally mean to say is, are you aware of the true origin of what is woke and what is not? How are you handling your wokeness, as it were? And then those who are on the other side, who are absolutely unaware and ignorant, what are you doing to wake yourself up? I think trying to give you a 360-degree view is all this episode was all about. Until we meet the next time, the times are very tough with all the geopolitical tensions. I just hope all of you are safe. My heartfelt condolences to the tragic event and the lives lost in Belgaum in Kashmir. And very difficult to focus on everyday issues when these things affect you in some way or the other. And not affecting is a dangerous sign, right? So I just hope all of you listening to wherever you are, please do take care of yourselves. Please be safe. Please stay calm. I know it's very difficult to stay calm now, but stay calm, stay safe, take care of people around you, and we can hope to see a better tomorrow. Till we meet the next time, this is your host Ayan, and you are listening to Bus Talk. Have a great week ahead.